Guys all right to go? There are 157 active cases of coronavirus in Victoria, with just 2 new cases since my update yesterday. The last time it was 2 was on the 8th of June. Of today's 2 cases, one is linked to a known outbreak and one is under investigation. No cases were reclassified. There are 14 Victorians in hospital and none of those 14 patients are in intensive care. A total of 2,906,876 test results have been received since the beginning of the year, which is an increase of 16,381 since yesterday. Can I thank each and every one of those 16,381 Victorians who went and got tested the day before. It is a massive contribution that you can make. Arguably, nothing is more important than a symptomatic Victorian going and getting tested as soon as they register those symptoms. That's a very strong number, and when you compare that to what's occurring in other states and in percentage terms what's occurring in other parts of the world, that is exactly what we need to be happening. That gives us the most complete picture. The greatest confidence, although never certainty, but the greatest confidence that we can put a public health response, isolation, proper support around each and every person who's got this and each and every person who's been in close contact or even casual contact with those positive cases. So again, thank you so much, and please, this weekend, regardless of the weather, regardless of the time of year, and sadly regardless of fatigue and the frustration with this pandemic and this virus, if you have any symptoms that become clear to you over the course of later today, Saturday and Sunday, please don't wait till Monday to get tested. Just very quickly, those exposure days, the days when you've got it and you've got symptoms but you don't go and get tested, they're the days in which you will give it to other people, and they in turn will give it to other people beyond that group. That's how we finish up with 1 or 2 cases becoming 30, 50, 100 cases. So please do not delay. If you've got any symptoms whatsoever, please get tested to protect your family and every family, and to get us open sooner. On testing, I can report also that day 11 test results are almost all in from Kilmore. There are no positives. Cases have been cleared and the incident management team was stood down yesterday. Residents of Kilmore who wish to get tested, though, can still access testing at Kilmore District Health. Can I give a shout out to the good people of Kilmore? They've done an amazing job. So many people coming forward to get tested, so many people then staying at home until they got their results, both cases, contacts, and then their contacts, that third group of people. The number of people who are still isolated, I haven't got that for you in definitive terms, but if that can be in the Chief Health Officer's release, I'll provide that. But people are being cleared because we've got to that 11th day, the tests have been done, they haven't got it, and then they can go about their business. But really sincere thanks to everybody in Kilmore. There are 10 healthcare workers who are active cases. The rolling average to 15 October in Metro Melbourne is 8.7 cases. In regional Victoria, it is 0.6. Cases classified as mystery cases, unknown source. We can't work out where they got it from, who they got it from. There are 17 of those cases, all in Metro Melbourne, as at the 13th of October. So that's between the 30th of September and the 13th of October. In terms of the Metro regional split on the 2 new cases today, they are both in metropolitan Melbourne. 1 case in Greater Dandenong, a household member of a known case, and 1 case linked to a Knox address, which is the case that we are investigating. In terms of active cases in regional Victoria, that is 7. There are 7 active cases in regional Victorian local government areas. That's 4 from Mitchell Shire, down 1 from the 5 I reported yesterday. So 1 person has cleared through their 14 days. And there are 3 active cases in Greater Shepparton, and they are the same 3 that we've been reporting to you over a number of days. There are now just 14 active cases in residential aged care, which is very, very pleasing given the vulnerability of those settings. Now, if I can just talk about Shepparton for a little bit, and then I'm going to ask Martin to speak particularly to wastewater testing and some of the other surveillance work. The vast majority of Wednesday's tests are back with us, and they are negative. That is, I can't put an exact number on it, but it's roughly a couple of thousand tests done on Wednesday, and we've got something like 96% of those back. The balance, because there is now 4,931 tests that have been taken in that greater Shepparton area, so nearly 5,000 tests. The balance of those were taken yesterday, and we'll get those results later on today and into the evening, and we'll report those to you tomorrow. But on essentially 40% roughly of those tests, we've had no positive cases. The balance of Wednesday's tests will come through today, with the overwhelming majority of Thursday's tests, which will come through today as well, perhaps into the evening, so they will be a feature of tomorrow's report. Can I just thank every single one of those nearly 5,000 people? That is such a deeply impressive thing to see people from right across the Goulburn Valley present as asked. Many have had, because of the nature of this testing and the fact it has to be done steady, safe way. They've waited for a period of time. We're so grateful to them. It makes you proud to see a community come together, even though we're staying apart, to come together with a sense of purpose to defeat this second wave and to take control of this virus to the extent that it's present in Shepparton and the Goulburn Valley. Every single one of those people, and indeed the entire Shepparton community, should be very, very proud. We went to as many as 13 test sites yesterday, so that's been a very rapid response, and I want to thank all the teams, including some 11 staff members from the Australian Defence Force, as well as teams from Bendigo and Ballarat, as well as Albury-Wodonga and North East Health in Wangaratta. No small effort, both on the part of people presenting to get tested and a very big team of people who really rapidly stood up to respond to this public health challenge. As I said, the balance of those test results will be reported in the usual way, but the fact that we've got around 2,000 of those results back already and we've had no positives out of it is obviously very encouraging. There'll be lots of detail on the website, but just for those who might be tuned in, and we do understand there's a very significant audience for these stand-ups each day, so I just want to quickly run through a number of those testing sites. The Acute Respiratory Clinic at Graham Street, Shepparton, is open. The Macintosh Centre at Shepparton Showgrounds, corner of Thompson Street and High Street, is open. If people do not have symptoms, then they are encouraged to that location, to the Macintosh Centre at Shepparton Showgrounds. 2 separate drive-through clinics at Shepparton Sports Precinct, the corner of Numurkah Road and Browman Street, Shepparton. There are 2 locations there, the Soccer Fields car park and the Netball Courts car park. Central Park Recreation Reserve, corner Central Avenue and Channel Road, Shepparton East, is open as well. Shepparton Respiratory Clinic, Wellsford Street, by appointment. Kyabram District Health Service, they've got a drive-through service there today, tomorrow and Sunday. Kyabram District Health will also operate a second drive-through at the Northern Oval in Kyabram. That's for today. Stanhope Senior Citizen Centre is open, and Numurkah Hospital is open also for testing. All of that will be on the website, of course, with the appropriate operating hours, but that is in every way an impressive effort to have so many different testing sites. And I do know there's been queuing, and I just make the point that that makes these quite nearly 5,000 tests even more impressive, given that people have waited, and that is the nature of this testing. It's got to be done safely. The last thing we want to do is to have infections while people are in the process of getting tested. So it's all got to be done in a very painstaking way, and I do understand it's been quite a challenge for many people, but I thank them so sincerely for having come out in such strong numbers. Now, today is a day where we can be optimistic and we can be positive, and we can, all of us as Victorians, look to all that we have achieved. We have stayed the course. We have not let our frustration get the better of us. We have made a conscious decision to defeat this second wave, and we found it in ourselves to deal with the pain and the challenges of lockdown. We found it within ourselves to look out for each other while staying apart from each other. This is no small thing. This is no small thing. And because of the work that Victorians have done, the fact that we as a community families, communities, sectors of the economy, city and country, large cities and towns to the smallest of towns, because we as a state have been as stubborn as this virus in our resolve to defeat it. We are well placed to take significant steps on Sunday. It will not be everything that everyone wants, because it's not safe to take all of those steps that were outlined in stage 3. But on Sunday, I very much look forward to giving people a sense of what the coming weeks look like, and it is fair to say that if these numbers continue, then we are very well placed to be broadly in alignment with our foreshadowed stage 3. We have to wait and see though, and this is where it gets very difficult, because this thing will test our resolve right up until the last minute, and indeed well beyond those decisions. It will test our resolve every single day in every community until we get a vaccine. I think we're equal to that test. I think that we've drawn on reserves of courage and community that are so impressive. We'll make some significant announcements on Sunday. I can't give you an insight into those today because we haven't made those decisions yet. We will still be looking at the most contemporary data, the latest picture if you like, right into Saturday evening. But on Sunday, I hope to be able to speak about what the week after and the week after that looks like, and indeed beyond that, to continue to update all Victorians on what rules will be in place, what behaviours need to be maintained, what behaviours pose the greatest risk to driving further infections. We've come such a long way, and the most impressive thing is that there is a determination in the Victorian community to not fritter away all the great gains we've made. There is a genuine determination to see this thing off, to get the job done and to get it done properly. So then we can turn, having dealt with a health challenge, we can turn in unprecedented ways to the economic repair, but more than just repair. This is about making sure that our economy, workers, families, businesses are stronger than they've ever been. That won't be a week or a week. We haven't listened to the loudest voices. We haven't lost our nerve. We as a community are staying the course. And that's how you go from 725 cases to 2 cases. That's the only way you go from 725 cases to 2 cases. Look at France. Look at England. Look at the entirety of the United States. They are not coming out of restrictions. They are heading into lockdowns and into what will be a long and deadly winter. We have had our challenges, of course we have, but we are very well placed. And I am proud to lead a state where people know the task and they know that as challenging, as painful as it's been, the strategy is working. The strategy is absolutely working. We'll have more to say on Sunday, and I look forward to finalising those decisions over many lengthy hours of meetings over the next couple of days, and then we'll be back before you on Sunday to report progress. Every Victorian, every single Victorian who's been out there following the rules, doing the right thing, can be proud. And I'm proud of you for everything that you've given and everything that you've made possible. Now, I'm going to ask the Health Minister to add to my comments, and then we're happy to take any and all questions you have.
Thank you, Premier. I just rise to update the people of Victoria around surveillance testing developments in more recent times. And that goes to, firstly, the testing turnaround improvements that we've seen over the last few weeks. For the week of the 4th to the 10th of October, 97% of COVID results were returned within 1 day. This has improved from 93% from the previous month. And these turnaround times are based on specimen collections signed off by the labs and measured in days, not hours. That's been a substantial improvement. It's not just reported via the DHHS health websites, it's also part of the National Cabinet transparent system for reporting on all states. Surveillance testing takes many forms beyond just the testing for COVID results. It also has expanded, as we've reported on, in wastewater testing in recent times. We have now got a total of 42 wastewater treatment plants participating in the state's wastewater surveillance program. That's increased by 10 over the past week. And all of those regional sites did not detect any traces of SARS-CoV. The program continues to expand as one of the measures of how we can use that to assist the wider tools of clinical testing. As we've reported before, that program has seen viral fragments appear in two of those locations, Anglesea and Apollo Bay, which then saw community testing confirm that there were no positive swab testings in those communities. It allows us that reassurance, and in those cases it may well have been some historical shedding of the virus from earlier times. The third area of innovation in testing and surveillance testing regimes goes to the area of saliva testing. We've reported on this a couple of times with programs around trials of that involving Victoria Police and others. Saliva testing is now underway as part of the government's food supply industry testing program, and testing is already taking place at Hazeldene's outside of Bendigo, Woodward's Foods and KR Castlemaine in Castlemaine. Greenham's Tongala and Moira's Max Bendigo are scheduled for establishing that in the coming days. We expect to test more than 700 workers through this testing regime every week, and that regime will be expanded as one of the tools that will give our testing system all the surveillance, if you like, upstream predictive work that can supplement the downstream reactive work to stay ahead of this virus outbreaks, and to make sure that the impressive efforts that all Victorians have put in to get us to the point we have to allow us to look to cautious, safe and sustainable steps to reopen, that these tools, amongst others, will give us the ability to spread the net wider, to spread the opportunities to identify outbreaks before they occur in a way that can reassure Victorians that once we do reopen, we can stay reopen. Thank you.
Mr. Foley, just before you go, sorry, not sure if that was a light tickle or a bit of a throat clear, but are you heading for a COVID test?
No, I feel fine, thank you. It was a throat clear. As you can see from my eloquent delivery, I feel fine. Thank you for your concern.
Minister, where is the CRM at?
As we know, the CRM, the Salesforce arrangements for digitising the end-to-end product of contact tracing and support is making significant progress. Its trialling and its rollout is underway, and it's continuing to meet its benchmarks. Can I thank our contact tracing team for that? And can I also thank the Chief National Scientist, Alan Finkel, for his support and his assistance in that. As you will remember, Professor Finkel has the job from National Cabinet, not just for Victoria, but for all the states, to make sure that all of the systems are as good as they possibly can be, but also linked to the ability to talk to each other as we move towards reopening in a suitable way. And I know from the work that Professor Finkel is undertaking that it's not just me saying that we've made substantial progress in contact tracing and the CRM Salesforce system. It's experts like Professor Finkel.
But how long will it be before you get asked that question and you're able to say it's operating as it's meant to, rather than testing?
It is operating as it's meant to. What it's doing, it's operating now. The digitisation is underway. It's being expanded as it goes. So different areas of what is being digitised and operated through the local public health units every week is being expanded, and I'm more than happy to get the contact tracing team to provide you the specific details as to how that's gone. I want to thank our contact tracers. They've done an extraordinary job, as we've seen, as we've brought the numbers down. That's allowed us the ability to get into better and finer detail around contact tracing and to expand it from not just the immediate contacts but the secondary or third ring contacts. And the work that they've done, the tools that they've been provided, not just the digital tools but some of these other links to testing turnaround times, some of the other surveillance testing in workplaces, all comes together to give us the comprehensive system that our testing, contact tracing and support teams need to make sure that once we get these numbers down, we have the systems in place to keep them down.
If that process was further along, would that make a difference to the decisions you're going to make this weekend, all of you?
So the decisions we've yet to make will be based on the data and the science and the best advice at that time. And the arrangements that we've been making are all feeding into that.
I wouldn't want any Victorian to think that decisions on Sunday will be conservative in nature because of any deficiencies anywhere, because there aren't any. The decisions on Sunday will be conservative because this is a wildly infectious virus. This is these are some of the most difficult decisions that I've made in 20 years in public life, and they may well be some of the most difficult decisions that I'll ever make, regardless of how long I do this sort of work, because they're just genuinely hard. This thing moves so quickly, and it is millions of people making hundreds of decisions and choices every day means there are literally tens, hundreds of millions of different points in time when things can go wrong. I'll just go and visit a mate. I feel well. I'll just go and do. I'll go and do whatever it is on that list of things, particularly in-home activity, where you feel the safest, where you feel the closest to the people that you're missing the most. It's perfectly understandable. I understand why people want to go and do that, but it is absolutely the most dangerous environment. Spending time, multiple groups of people inside, at home, with their guard down, no distancing, all of those things, that's more dangerous than any meatworks. It's as simple as that. So these are really fine judgments, and they're really difficult choices. Because the last thing any of us want to do is make a judgment that might be popular with some, but ultimately proves to have undermined all the pain, the hard work, the contribution, all the progress we've made. We are moving, we are not just meeting National Cabinet benchmarks, we are in fact creating new ones. Certain activity in contact tracing that should ideally be performed within 48 hours, we're getting it done in 30 hours. That's end to end. Outbreak management in recent times, despite the absolute complexity of those outbreaks, they have been well managed. And the fact that they couldn't get pulled up at 5 cases, they went further, is not a commentary on contact tracing or outbreak management. It's a commentary on how complex human behaviour is, how challenging it is to build the most complete picture in real time, but it's never real time because it's always after the event. It's always after the event. You are chasing the whole time. It's a big team, it's well equipped, it's performing very well, and its capabilities are not a factor on Sunday. What is a factor though is that this thing moves so fast and silently that it is a wicked enemy. There's no question about that. No question at all.
Premier, the roadmap you initially announced had October the 26th as the day for relaxing stay-at-home restrictions. Then, in the days following your appearance at the hotel quarantine inquiry and Jenny Mikakos's resignation, when the numbers were looking a little better, you needed some good news, you announced you'd be bringing that date forward a week Then the numbers proved to be more stubborn than expected, and you said we wouldn't be taking the full step this Sunday. Now the numbers look as though they might be almost on track to be close to the original October 26 target, with the exception of some pretty high mystery case numbers.
Yes.
Should you have just stuck to the original plan?
Well, I don't accept your conclusion that we're in the business of trading in good news. I would have thought I'd established pretty clearly for the people of Victoria that it's the truth, the facts, the science that I trade in, and whether it's popular or not, that is not my concern. My concern is to get this done and to get it done right. So I don't accept the characterisation of when announcements were made, and they're not announcements that I might make them, but they are based on advice. They are based on advice. And at the points in time that you have cited, there was a confidence that we would be able to bring forward what was planned to be announced on the 26th. Now, the fact of the matter is that on Sunday, fully a week before the 26th, we will be bringing some things forward. But they are in the lower risk category. They're the things that won't compromise everything that we have been able to achieve. So I can't really accept the premise of the question because it's just not, it just isn't accurate. And what is announced on Sunday will be on the basis of public health advice and many, many hundreds of hours of careful thought, consideration, not just of numbers, but of the narrative that sits behind those numbers. What is correct in your statement though, Rachel, in your question, is the issue of mystery cases, and they will continue to be a very significant guide for us because they have to be, because they are not cases that are contained. The case itself may be, but we don't know where the person got it from. There has to be at least one other person that they contracted the virus from. That person will have close contacts. That person's close contacts will have contacts, and so the story goes on. So that's why that is such a critical part of this. And that is, again, a function of the fact that the thing moves so rapidly. And the people can have this, give it to other people, never even develop symptoms. Never even develop symptoms, or symptoms so mild that they don't register. So that never prompts it. That never prompts a test. It is genuinely challenging. But Sunday will be about what we can do ahead of the 26th, and then we'll have more to say about the 26th and other days in the weeks to come, and what we believe we'll be able to do. Again, all subject to case numbers and particularly subject to mystery case numbers, but those announcements are to be made on Sunday.
So
So 26, Premier, is the 26th still a date where restrictions may be changed even again? Like,
There is an
foreshadowing?
I'm not committing to that. What I'm saying to you is that if you look at recent days, in fact, if you look across the course of this week, it may well be that we can take further steps that weekend. But again, that's all got to be based on some very thoughtful analysis, not just of the numbers, but the stories that sit behind each of those cases. And we'll have more to say about that on Sunday.
So some hopeful Sundays to come in a row.
Well, today is a very positive day. To think that we've gone from more than 700 cases to 2 cases. There's not many jurisdictions in the world doing that. And just before people make the point, oh yes, but we've been locked down and there's all this other pain, yes, we acknowledge that. But those jurisdictions that have not been able to deliver that are about to shut down. About to shut down and go into a period of time where, again, just no one should interpret me as blaming the weather for this virus, but there's a fair bit of international evidence that says this thing likes the cold. And the other hemisphere, I think they're in for a very difficult time, and we send them our best wishes. But we've got to see this off properly. And I've always said, you've got to get the numbers low to keep the numbers low. That's why today's such an important day.
Premier, if you're not in the business of trading in good news, can you give an undertaking now that you won't be handing down the state budget in the days immediately following the hotel quarantine inquiry being handed down?
Well, the state budget will be delivered when we announce the date for that. It's got nothing to do with that process. They're two very separate processes.
If it was handed down in the days immediately following that report, which is expected to not necessarily be good news for the government, Victorians could be forgiven for seeing it as an attempt to distract from that bad news, though, couldn't they?
Well, I'll leave it to you to interpret what the Victorian community might view, how they might view things. I don't see those two processes as being linked. And what's in the report will be in the report. I'm not making any judgments about that. Well, I having personally established the inquiry, I'm very keen to see its report. When I say I'm not in the business of trading in good news, I was refuting, I think, the notion that we had manufactured certain announcements for the purposes of PR or being popular. I would have thought, if I could be so bold as to offer a thought, that I had well and truly demonstrated to the Victorian community that I'm about doing what is right, not necessarily what is popular. That is so far from my considerations. It is in some respects unique, because that's where we're at. This is a unique year. These are unique times. And politics and popularity, that's not what we're about. We're about a pandemic response that allows people to open up, to reconnect with the people they love the most and that they're missing the most, to repair the damage to the economy and people, individuals and families that this pandemic has done. But there's only one way to do that. You've got to deal with the numbers and the health issue, and then you can move to that economic recovery. Whether that be popular or not, that is not what I'm elected to do. That is not the team that I lead. We're here to get this job done, and we're going to. And you know why? Because the Victorian community, the vast majority of the Victorian community know and understand there's just no other way to do it.
Premier, with regards to giving some indication of what to expect in weeks to come, will you be setting new targets to meet for those new restrictions to perhaps ease?
Those matters are being settled. They'll be settled today, tomorrow. We will wait until we've got the most complete picture, and then we'll have more to say about what the framework looks like. If I put it to you this way, what I can definitely commit to is we will give people on Sunday a list of things that they can do that they can't do right now. We will then also give to people across Victoria a sense of what the most important considerations for us will be in making further decisions about next steps. And it is a fair assumption that mystery cases are going to be a really significant part of that, because there's just no getting around the fact that we don't know where the person got it from, despite the very best of efforts, downstream, upstream, the whole thing. It's very, very challenging for these numbers to be able to determine how and from whom and in what circumstances that infection happened. And therefore, you've got to assume that there are more cases out there than you think. And you don't want a situation where you open the place up too quickly only to then have that confirmed via different proxies, whether it be testing or whether it be people turning up to hospital needing urgent care. I do note that France overnight, they're reporting 50% of their intensive care unit beds are full. We have avoided that, and I'm determined that we will continue to avoid that.
So, Premier, sorry, can I just continue? Sorry, so short of a massive outbreak then, is it fair to say that daily case threshold will be scrapped?
No, I wouldn't say that. I know it's frustrating. Everyone wants to be able to report what I'm going to do on Sunday. The fact of the matter is we haven't decided yet. There's still meetings, there's still all manner of fine-tuning and all manner of work. And the reason for that, for people at home, just the reason for that is not to announce it on a day that suits me. It's to give us more time. Tomorrow's data, proper analysis of the data that's been received today. Even to a certain extent, Sunday's data will be a feature of this. We get at least a first run of what's on the board, the number of cases that we've had. Not all laboratories report, but a large number of them late into the evening. So we had 3 cases on the board at about 11 o'clock last night. One of those turned out that it wasn't real, so we were able to report 2 cases today. So the only reason Sunday is important is because it gives us 2 more days of data than if we were to make announcements today. And these are really fine judgments, and the stakes are very high.
Just on mystery cases, how are they tracking for us? What are we learning about them?
I might get the Chief Health Officer in his release later on today just to provide you with, again, that kind of narrative and any more that we know about them, whether there are any trends beyond the ones that have been there for quite some time. But 17 between 30 September and 13th October is a real concern to us. Doesn't seem a lot when we were talking about 700s, but The other thing in terms of total case numbers on a given day, but the other thing to remember here as well, and this is the point that, people often make comparisons with New South Wales. You've got 45 active cases versus 157 active cases. That's two very different places. Two very different places. What's more, we've had 4,280, this is across the entire pandemic, 4,280 mystery cases across the whole year. So that means that it's not unreasonable to make a judgment that there's more of this out there than the numbers tell us. The other thing too, and this is in no way a criticism, but we all know not everyone presents to be tested as soon as they should, and that's why we urge everybody every day. If there's no exposure days or half an exposure day as opposed to 3 or 4 days, then we will pull this up, and each of these cases and outbreaks will be infinitely smaller than they otherwise would be. The other point is that there are some people who don't go to get tested at all, whether it's mildness of symptoms or for whatever reason. They make a judgment that they won't go and get tested. So you always have to assume there is more of this out there bubbling than the numbers tell you.
Is there a ratio there? If we got 100 active, there's probably another 10 we don't know about? Or?
Yeah, let me get the Chief Health Officer. There are some. I won't call them formulas, but there are some assumptions that are made. They're judgments best made by doctors about the percentage of people who are coming forward and getting tested. That's probably the easiest one. And we do have pretty good data, very good data, in fact, about how many exposure days, because in that long form interview, which can be an hour or more, people, except for some very small numbers of people, are very frank and clear and give us a complete picture, which is the most important thing. So we do know when did you first feel sick? And people are forthcoming, and then they'll tell us where they've been, and then the whole process begins from there. But getting tested as soon as you have symptoms is in many respects, notwithstanding following the rules in a broader sense, right? That's the most important thing. But in many ways, the thing that is really on the person, like it's an individual choice, the thing that you can absolutely control, the most important thing to do, as soon as you've got symptoms, go and get tested. Don't wait an hour. And for heaven's sake, don't wait 3 or 4 days, because all you'll be doing is giving it to other people. And I think people are still rightly fearful. We don't know what the long-term effects of having this virus are. We know that it can be deadly for many, many people. We see that here. We see that around the world. That's a cause of great sadness. But we don't know what otherwise healthy people who 6 months after having had it are still struggling with what might be termed a chronic condition rather than a cold that you get over in a short period of time. It's called a novel virus for a reason. We don't know about it. We don't know everything about it. So doing everything you can to not get it, and then if you have got it, doing everything you can to not give it to the people you love the most, that is our setting. That's where we all have to be, every day, every month, until a vaccine turns up.
Just to clarify, these mystery cases are most concerning because when they give in that interview of an hour a list of the however many places they've been, those places simply don't line up with any of the places that we know that the virus has been detected before. Is it just about geography?
Yeah,
Is it also about the strain?
No, I don't think it's about strain so much, but it's about a chain of transmission. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. If I tested positive tomorrow, then I can list my family and I can list all of you, right? You're the only people that I've been with and a couple of senior staff. If all of you get tested and none of you have got it, I would be a mystery case. Where did it come from? All the people I've spent time with, 15 minutes face-to-face, 2 hours in the same room. We can then go further out than that, but that's the basic way you look at it. If all of you didn't have it and didn't get it over the 3 and 11-day period, then that would be a mystery. That would be a mystery case, and it would be a genuine mystery. How is it that you got it? And when you think about it, though, this thing's got a life cycle. We've had World Health Organization research this week talking about, on surfaces for 28 days, and that's why we've stepped up cleaning and we're looking at all of those sort of issues. That's back to that key point. It's a novel virus because we only know so much about it. It is a mystery to us in some ways, and it's not then surprising that we have mystery cases.
Just out of interest, have you still not been tested? Or
No, I haven't had any symptoms. I've been very well. I had a flu shot earlier in the year. I would normally get a cold or two throughout the year, but I've not, and that's the story. That is absolutely the story. We have not had anywhere near the cough and cold or flu-like symptoms moving around the community, and that's the message to every Victorian. If you've got those coronavirus symptoms, those cough and cold, flu-like symptoms, it's almost certain that you've got this, because all the other things you might have aren't here, and the data tells us that.
Premier, you mentioned the Chief Health Officer earlier. There are reports today that the Hotel Quarantine Inquiry has requested further documents from DHHS after senior public servants pointed to correspondence that indicates that Professor Sutton knew about security guards in hotel quarantine in late March or early April,
Yes.
despite the fact that he gave written and verbal evidence to the inquiry that he didn't know that they were working there until clusters emerged in late May.
Yes.
Firstly, is there a reason Professor Sutton isn't here today? And secondly, given that he reports indirectly to you, are you confident that the evidence that he gave to the inquiry was true and correct?
Well, a couple of points. There's no connection between those reports, which I have seen. I know not much more than those reports. And that's not a great surprise on the basis that this is a matter between the Chief Health Officer, the Department and the Board. So I can't offer any commentary on that. As to his appearance here or non-appearance here today, that's not got anything to do with those matters. He's very busy off doing the work that we all need him to be doing, both he and Alan and others, running numbers, looking at case notes, trying to make projections, really difficult projections about what will the impact be if we take steps A, B, C on Sunday. How far can we push it and still be safe? How much can we give back to the community and still be safe? That's the work he's doing. And I will boldly predict he'll be doing that today, and he'll be doing it tomorrow, and all of us will be assisting him in that.
And are you confident that the evidence that he gave
Oh,
is
sorry,
true
I
and
missed your
correct?
question. I have no reason not to be, but those matters are being followed up by the Board. I've got no reason to be anything other than confident in his skills and experience and his commitment to playing his important role.
How far we
I'm not rushing out the door. Everyone gets a go. I'm happy to be as brief as you'd like me to be, but I'm in your hands. Noel.
Okay, you've made the point a few times that you yourself called the inquiry. We've had a few loose ends come up since it wrapped up its public hearings. Would you be supportive of it reconvening its public hearings to talk about things like Brett's evidence, the phone records that have come out?
The thing about an independent inquiry is they're absolutely independent, and they can make whatever judgments they believe are the most appropriate. So if they need more information, they're free to call for it. If they want to do other things, then they're perfectly free to do that. That's entirely a matter for them. And that is the nature of an arm's length independent process established under an Act of the Parliament, and that's not a matter for me.
And you'd be happy to appear again? And
I've been at all times absolutely willing and determined to be as cooperative and helpful as possible, and that will not be changing. I set the thing up and I want the report, and the report's due in just a few weeks, and we'll be able to talk more freely about it then, and every Victorian should be in no doubt that I will not waste a moment in taking the decisive action that's necessary to make sure these sorts of mistakes can never happen again, regardless of the context.
Are you surprised there are more cases in Shepparton, given that the virus has been there for a couple
Yeah,
of
to tell you the
weeks?
truth, I am very pleased. That's the way I describe it, rather than surprised. You can never tell with these things. You could easily have built a case that when you've got a person who's infectious, who doesn't tell us the truth, he then goes to a place where lots of other people move in and out of. And when you really think about it, if we just think for a moment, you go and get new tyres on the car, the car stays there, people are in and out of the car, they're moving the car, they're giving you the keys back, you're jumping into the vehicle. There's lots of opportunities, plus there's staff at that place, and they then go and, again, or in full accordance with the rules, they go and live their lives and visit different places. I think you could easily have built an argument that there would be some positives. And look, to be honest, James, I can't tell you what the other 3,000 tests will tell us. But what is really apparent is that people have done as we've asked, and that should be a point of pride for them, and it's certainly something that makes me very proud to lead a community. Shepparton is a diverse, strong, proud town, and all those smaller communities that look to Shepparton as their centre, they've done an amazing job. I'm very grateful to them.
Premier,
Can I just clarify the timeline? Sunday when you make these announcements, is it likely to be activated midnight that night or coming in the days afterwards?
I think we'll try and give people, we'll be ready with the rules that will need to be rewritten to bring those new settings on as quickly as possible. But there's no final decision about whether it's, you know, midnight Sunday, midday Monday. It'll be as quick as we can do it. And that kind of makes, it's a little easier. Nothing's easy, but it's a little easier because it's much more in the social space than it is in the economic space. But we'll have more to say about what the next set of decisions look like. And as I said earlier on, not necessarily with hard and fast dates, but a really clear insight into those factors, those things that will be dominating our thinking and will be most important to us next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through that week, the week after, and indeed the things that I think will continue to drive us for quite some time.
So it's unlikely to feature restaurants, cafes?
I've tried to be very clear about the fact that it would not be safe for us to make those sorts of decisions. This is in Metro. There are opportunities for us to expand the settings in regional Victoria because numbers are very low, and we will have more to say about that on Sunday.
Should I book a game of golf on Monday?
Well, you'll have to wait till Sunday, and then you'll know whether you can book a game of golf on Monday. I will not be playing golf on Monday. I would very much like to be, but I'll be doing some work, some more important work than that. Look, whether it's fishing, golfing, all these sorts of, golf, I should say, golf, tennis, fishing, all those sorts of outdoor activities, which may in and of themselves be quite low risk, but they invite and they require substantial movement. That's why they've not been allowed. I can tell you that clubhouses will not be open on Monday. But if we can take other steps to give people back some of the things that they love, some of the things that give them a sense of normality, it'll look a bit different. It always has to be safe. Then they're the sorts of decisions we're looking to make on Sunday. But I can't and I won't try and give you the things I can only be certain of on Sunday today.
I understand. Because you can play golf without a clubhouse, without going into a clubhouse.
Yes, indeed, you can.
That would be a great plan, one might suggest.
It's the golf that I play normally, for a couple of hours on a Sunday night normally, without much time in the clubhouse. Others spend a lot of time in the clubhouse, so I'm happy for them. But that's not something that's going to happen for a while, because that's no different to being at a pub or a cafe. It's no different to being visiting someone else in their home. That is essentially, on any given day, that is many hundreds of households essentially joining together, because each of those people, having spent time with each other, go home and potentially take the virus with them, and so on and so on. Sunday's the day for us to provide confirmation around those things, but they are the things that we are definitely looking at.
Do you know that you could get rid of the kilometre limit for travel altogether, or will there definitely be some sort of limit?
All those matters are being looked at the moment. I can definitely confirm for you that the hard border between metropolitan Melbourne and regional Victoria will stay. I can't give people a definitive answer as to how long that will stay, but because we are confident that we can even strengthen that further and have even less people getting through those roadblocks, then we do believe that regional Victoria will be able to go further again beyond the step and the rules that they're in now. It won't be, again, all the rules are off and they're back to, what October and November last year look like. There'll still be a framework, but there will be further safe steps we can take in lots of different areas in regional Victoria, because it's a low virus community and Melbourne is a higher virus community, and we're keeping the two apart as well as we can.
Just on that hard border, was your request for more ADF personnel to bolster that ring of steel yesterday an acknowledgement that it isn't as strong as it should be, and what will those ADF personnel be doing that the police and ADF personnel already involved haven't been?
Oh no, I think they'll be doing similar work. There might be some additional checkpoints, there might be just a recognition. I think, again, I'm not here to speak for the Chief Commissioner, but I would say to you that as we open up, it's a fair assumption that some of the general duties, the normal work that the women and men of Victoria Police do, they'll have that task, which will increase in its size and scale, as well as all of their coronavirus tasks to perform. So my request of the Prime Minister was in two parts. Can we get some certainty? Again, in no way criticism, but the notion of troop rotation and ADF rotation this time of year, they've got a plan for really terrible weather in the north of the country. That's just part of their annual cycle. So can we get a bit of certainty about the ones we've got at the moment? Can we likely bank on keeping them for a period of time? And if so, for how long? And if you had another, if you had extra people that could help us with that task, that'd be a great assistance to Victoria Police. That matter's being considered, and as soon as I've got anything to report, I will.
Premier, will Sunday's announcement be made before the netball grand final?
This is a matter that has been raised with me, and I'm going to try and do everything I can not to clash with that very important event.
Premier,
So either be after or before?
I don't think it'll be after. I think it'll be before.
And just on Sunday, Premier, a lot of businesses have said they could go under if there's no change to the restrictions on them by, say, Sunday or the week after. Will that be a consideration, or is it purely the health advice?
Well, look, I understand. I grew up in a household where my parents built businesses from nothing, lost everything, rebuilt in many different sectors, whether it be in farming, in food production, in cafes and milk bars, in wholesale trade, across the board. That was my childhood. Right? I understand. And whether that makes me a typical Labor politician or something else, that's a matter for others to judge. But these are the sorts of issues that were dominating kitchen table discussion every night as I grew up. I understand because I've lived it. I've seen people, the people you love the most, build something up and have it all taken away through no fault of their own. I have lived that. That's what saw us move from metropolitan Melbourne to regional Victoria. Exactly that happening. So it's not a matter of empathy, it's a matter of lived experience. I know and understand how challenging this is, but there's no leadership in letting people open up when you know it's not safe and you know it's not sustainable, only to then have them closed a short time later. That's not leadership. That's something very, very different.
Premier, just on business, I'm told by the Independent Brewers Association, the Victorian brewers have been left out of your government's hospitality venue fund. Apparently breweries that operate hospitality components but have a separate general restaurant or similar licence are eligible for the fund, but those with identical business models are operating hospitality on a producer licence are not. So it's basically if a beer making place or is
like a craft brewery that doesn't have a restaurant.
Brewery has got a couple of tables on the side. Are you able to seek any clarity?
I will do that for you and for them and for everybody who enjoys craft beer, which there are many people. Many people. I'll follow that up. I'm getting thumbs up from the back of the room.
They probably want to get.
Cameraman's very happy.
They probably want to.
My senior staff will be happy too. It's a thing. It is a thing. It's a big thing. People love these products, and they're very highly made. They're the best of their kind anywhere in the world, I'm told.
I was probably going to say they probably want to get back on the beers, Premier. So is there any enlightenment?
Well, I didn't stipulate which beer you'd be able to get back on, and we're not yet at that point. That will come.
Yeah.
That will come.
We're awaiting that day, no doubt. So, just to wrap that one up, if you wouldn't mind.
We might have a slab or two at that point.
Are there issues with eligibility though for your funds, or are you trying to catch all?
I don't believe there is, but on that issue, I will have my office follow it up, just as we did with your uncle, the painter. We will chase it up.
What did you think about
the
AHA idea that every pub would have a digital tracing system? Would that speed up?
It's a fantastic idea. QR codes, that type of thing. We've been working very closely with the AHA on those issues and others, and I think that's going to be a feature. I can't necessarily tell you when we'd move to that, but that may well be a feature of that kind of long-term maintenance phase. So once we get as open as we can be, we've found that COVID normal. I think that sort of technology and maybe other technologies that are not yet apparent to us they'll be a really significant feature. Just makes it easier instead of the pencil and paper at the actual venue, just to try and validate so we've got the most complete picture. The other thing too, it's a bit like testing. We've got some rapid testing stuff that's a whole lot of different tech that's being tested at the moment and trialled. We've used some of it. I think Jerome the other day was talking about the fact that we had done those rapid tests on a number of people in connection with Shepparton. So that tyre business where it became apparent the truck driver had been, we did a test, the 20-minute test with those. It's not quite as accurate as the nasal and throat swab, but it gives you a pretty good picture and you can move on from there. So sometimes really old-fashioned stuff is important, but at the same time, if we can use tech to benefit us as well, we will.
Just to speed up the decision to open up some venues or some.
No, I think
capacity?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I just want to say, there's a lot of people in that industry that are feeling a lot of pain, and it's not just for their profits; they feel it for their people as well. It has always been my view. It's not always been popular, but the hotel industry provide important places, spaces that are for many people an opportunity to connect with each other. They're a very important part of the fabric of the way our city and state works, and I've always valued that very, very highly. Not to mention the philanthropic contribution, the charity, the giving that is absolutely synonymous with the work of pubs across our state. All of that matters to me. It always has, and I've not always been popular for having that view, but it is my view, and maybe it's having grown up in the country, I've seen it firsthand. But it's no less true for city pubs as well. We'll get them open when it's safe to get them open, and when we can be certain that having opened them, we'll be able to keep them open. Not just for their profits, as important as that is, but for their people, for their staff, for their customers, for their patrons, and for the connections and the well-being that comes from what these environments that are always about people connecting and coming together. On the issue of whether technology makes that faster, I just say pubs in regional Victoria, for instance, are already required to do it the old-fashioned way. Some are using some tech. This will be about hopefully trying to standardise that. And we're very grateful for industry, not just the pubs, but others who've been working very closely with us on that.
And is it a reality then that a lot of venues in Victoria, pubs, cafes, whatever, that you'll effectively have to get used to checking in at these places for the foreseeable future?
Yes.
Will you make that mandatory, or will it be voluntary for most of these places?
Well, it's mandatory at the moment for the business to record those who attend.
What about retail and things like that when you go into a
we haven't quite dealt with that issue yet, but I think it is if the advice is from a public health point of view that that's going to make the job of contact tracing easier, and it's going to allow us to contain. This gets back to this key point about cases, contacts and their contacts. That could be 500-600 people, not great for them, but those hundreds of people being locked away for 3 and 11 days and some for 14 days mean hundreds of thousands of others can be going about their business. So this record keeping does allow you to have that cases, contacts and their contacts approach, which again, there's been a bit of commentary about, why wasn't this done 6 months ago? This works with small numbers. It's really hard and frankly doesn't work. Otherwise, you'd be saying when you had 400, 500, 600, 700 cases a day, you'd be telling 40,000 people or something, to 30,000 people to stay at home and not leave the home for any reason. Then of course you have to check on that. It works when the numbers are low, and the numbers are low. So we can go to that, and it's been very effective, and just, we're getting pretty close to the end, I hope, but I'll just say to the people in Shepparton who are doing that, cases, contacts and those secondary contacts, thank you so much. And to those in Kilmore who are just coming out of that with the day 11 testing, again, we're very grateful to them.
I have a question for Minister Foley, but you go.
Any more for me, and then Martin can
Sorry, Prem, I was just going to
round things up.
About aged care. I know it's predominantly a federal issue, but
Yes.
Visitors have been banned until recently. but we've become aware of an aged care home that only allows one person per family to visit once a week for half an hour. Does that sound reasonable to you, or perhaps overly cautious?
Probably depend on the circumstances of that aged care facility. So whether they'd had cases, for instance, that could be a relevant factor. If you want to give us the name offline, I'm more than happy to have someone in the public health team just check whether, try and get you an answer to that question. I think every aged care facility is unique. There have been some standard practices. That's certainly a cautious approach, I would think. But I'd probably need to know more about the background of what has gone on there during the pandemic, and also the nature of the type of care that they provide, because there are different settings that are more challenging than others, particularly those facilities that have got a significant number of psychogeriatric patients.
Just before you go, just on that three-ring...
And I won't go, but I'm...
Just on that three-ring isolation strategy,
Yes.
that's been applied to every new case that you see now?
I can't say every case, because for some of them you don't need to do it, because you've got a great degree of confidence that it hasn't gone beyond the case and the contact. But I think it would be fair to say that there's a very significant abundance of caution being applied. So it'll be the rule going forward, but there may be exceptions to that where it doesn't make any sense. So for instance, there's a bit of commentary yesterday about different advice and different high-risk settings being treated differently. And the thing is that they might be called a high-risk setting, but they are all unique. So Shepparton was in a very different position because you had somebody who had the thing, and we didn't find out for 2 weeks after they'd been there. So that's a different high risk set of locations than, say, a supermarket where within hours or just a day or so, say, we knew that a positive case had been there. So they all get treated differently.
You yourself just said, hundreds of people being shut up as opposed to thousands. Doesn't it make sense just to be aggressive all over? I'm just trying to be as clear as I can. I can't guarantee you that every single case will be treated that way, because some of them, the judgment may be that it's not. You don't need to. What I am saying more broadly, though, is there is, because numbers are low, there is a more aggressive position that is possible, and that's exactly what we'll use. But the public health team would always reserve the right to say, okay, this is two people, they're in the same house, they haven't left the house, that the second case has got it from, the husband's got it from the wife, etc., etc. There's no need to go any further than that, because there are no close contacts, and there are no contacts of them. It's all contained within one house. So that's the point that I'm making. It won't be absolute, but wherever it can deliver a public health benefit, and as I said, have, say, hundreds of people at home, but hundreds of thousands of people in a COVID normal, absolutely that's the way that we'll go.
Premier, there was a gathering yesterday at the Westgate Bridge Memorial, understandably.
Yes.
They were keeping their distance, but there appeared to be certainly far more than 5 people. I mean, no disrespect to those families, but would it have been better if that hadn't have happened?
I'm not aware of those circumstances, but I'll take it as you've put it to me, James. I'll just say to every single Victorian, there are many families who've not been able to say goodbye to a loved one because of this global pandemic, and these rules are there to keep us safe. And it is particularly hard for families who want to come together to celebrate a life, want to come together to grieve. It's very difficult that we have to limit that. I'm not sure what occurred there. I'm sure people had only the best of intentions, but those rules are there for a reason. And gatherings are limited because movement needs to be limited. I would just say I made a decision yesterday that we would start the press conference after 11:50, and I made mention of it yesterday. There's ways that we can be respectful, and I did indicate in those words, and again in the Parliament later in the afternoon, that there'll be a time for us to come together and to commemorate that 50th anniversary. It's a great scar in our city and state, but it did lead to exactly what tragedy should lead to. It did lead to really significant change, an occupational health and safety system that is among the very best in the world.
With
With the truckie who went to Shepparton, I understand he was set to be re-interviewed by DHHS a couple of days ago. Do you know if that revealed any more surprises about his movements?
I think that it's best to answer your question by saying that process is not yet finished.
He will be interviewed again?
We're still speaking with him, and we're still working through how he gets treated in terms of enforcement activity, those sorts of matters. We believe we have a complete picture now. It's not like there's another town he went to that he hasn't told us about. We believe we've got a complete picture, but I don't think that has been completely finalised in terms of some of the discussions with him. As soon as I've got any more to report on that, I will.
Taking police out of that process, what else does the department need from him?
Oh, not much more. But I just haven't got sorry, I probably should have been clearer. I don't think we have a final report. But there's nothing new. It's not like there's another town that should be worried. But along the Hume or along the Golden Valley Highway, we've got a complete picture. But I haven't got a report on where all that interview work got to, and what if any next steps will be taken against him.
Do you know if his GPS was seized or used?
I'm not sure.
No. Okay.
I'm not sure.
The potential for the Inspector General of Emergency Management to investigate. You said on Tuesday that it makes sense to wait until we've got through the pandemic before you ask the IGEM to investigate, and that's the usual way that the IGEM functions. But on the 14th of January, when hundreds of hectares of Victoria were still burning, you asked the IGEM to investigate the bushfires. From memory, it was an announcement that was intended to get in ahead of the federal government announcing a royal commission. Would it be unfair to conclude that you're motivated by political convenience rather than public interest in deciding when and whether to ask the IGEM to investigate emergencies?
Seriously? Yes, Rachel, that would be most unfair. Most unfair. The IGEM is part of our emergency management structure. He's down there at the State Control Centre. He'll be doing work now. Absolutely he will be. And he will have been doing it for months. I think, again, I don't think there's any quarrel between us on the facts of the matter. In terms of a big investigation, a big piece of work, then there's a build-up to that. His normal work doesn't just start at the end of a particular difficult period in our state, but I think he's down at the State Control Centre and he's doing a whole bunch of prep work and monitoring, and he'll be providing feedback along the way. But I think it would be most unfair to conclude that, because I don't think anything that we've ever done would bear that out.
So when do you expect to formally, I guess, make a formal request, as you did in the fires, for him to investigate?
Well, I think
and give him a date to
sure.
present a report.
I can't answer that. I can't answer that question at this point. But I would just say, and maybe it's me adding to my answer from the other day, I think that we've certainly. I'm not sure whether it's a formal request or whether we've simply sought to confirm that he's on the case. Like, that's what he does, and I'm absolutely confident that quite some time ago, if not myself, then the minister may have been formalised at some point through a cabinet process. But ultimately, he's a standing position for a reason, so that he can go and do that work in an ongoing way. And like for instance, he'll already be looking at our fire, the arrangements we're going to set up for fire this year. We've got the Bureau forecasting floods. He'll already be looking at that even before the disasters happened. So he's in the State Control Centre. I think he's well and truly across what's going on. He'll be providing updates and views, and he'll be well placed to do his normal job, his ongoing job, which he does every year. So I don't have any concern about that.
Do you expect at some stage to formally ask him to write a report about the pandemic preparedness?
I don't know, to be honest. What I can say is that I think he's almost certainly going to do that anyway. That's part of his role. That's absolutely part of his role. But I can't answer that question today. But as soon as I can, I'll be more than happy to outline what it is he believes he needs to do, what it is we believe he can assist us with. It's a standing position. It's not something that's set up for a particular set of issues. It's there, well-resourced, really important role. And as you say, he was able to produce a very important report, and will continue to produce further reports, whether it's about fire, flood, whatever it might be.
Premier, just back to the theme that James raised, but on another matter, and with the greatest of respect, an MP from another party raised an issue with me that he saw on the rooftop of the Parliamentary Garden during the week, at least more than 5 Labor MPs gathering together to eat lunch, talk together, converse, which would appear to be possibly a breach of the over 5 gathering limit. Have you conveyed these sorts of rules to your MPs, and is that the sort of standard that you would like them to be showing?
Again, I'm happy to have the Chief Health Officer confirm for you what the arrangements are in a workplace, and that's what the Parliament is. I'd just say, you know, I thought I made these points pretty clear yesterday. You know, there are some people who every single day of this pandemic have played cheap, nasty, ineffective politics with this. I'm not one of them, and I won't become one now. So if someone from the other side or wherever they're from thinks that that's the most important intervention they can make, that's fine. That is on them. Politics just doesn't work with this thing. It just doesn't work. It is not a vaccine. In fact, it's anything but that. I've not traded in it, and I won't start today. These numbers, 2 cases today, are not the product of some who would masquerade as leaders playing politics every single day of this pandemic. And I won't waste any more of my time or the attention of this audience going to it, but I'm not letting this slide. Some people, when tested, when called upon to lead, have decided to play politics every day of this, and I don't think the community will forget that.
Are you talking about Michael O'Brien?
Oh, there are many people that that might fit that bill, and they can reflect upon that, and the Victorian community can reflect upon that.
Who are those people, Premier? If you're going to talk about them, why
made
not
my
name them?
well. Look at
If they
have a look
are
at the
MPs
Hansard from
of
yesterday. Have a look at the Hansard from yesterday. I've made the point. I think it's a point that needs to be made, and I have made it. Not in an attempt to be wasting our time on others. I'm just giving you clarity on what drives me and what will not change, and that is my focus on people, not politics. That's what I offer, and that's what I deliver. And is there any more for me?
Yes, please.
Yes, no.
With the potential for the QR app, would it be one app, a state government app that would be statewide, all sectors, retail, hospitality?
I'm a bit wary of apps.
Right. So no.
Look, we had someone at the Alfred Hospital the other day. It pinged from the floor above. You know, like this. The app may come into its own. I hope it does. It really hasn't yet.
This is COVID safe.
Yeah, let's wait and see how that goes. The QR platform will be tested and will be effective, and will simply be an electronic way of recording who's where, who goes to a venue. That'll be very important. I do hope the app comes into its own, and maybe when we open up, it can be of much more benefit.
Can you tell us more about that? Did that divert the contact traces in that instance?
No, it didn't.
So has that changed your faith in the COVID safe app?
No. Let's hope it's let's hope it's of greater utility when we open up. And you know, those who are full-time commentators on Victoria, you know, they can have a look at some of those things a bit closer to home, maybe.
You're talking about Josh Frydenberg there?
Oh, Simon, if I wanted to mention the Federal Treasurer's name, I would. I haven't. So it's fair guess that when you ask me that, this is my answer. With the greatest of respect.
Sorry, just before we go to...
There's a whole bunch of people from Victoria, but I don't know how much they're for Victoria, Simon. They've got a lot to say, and none of that helps, because that's back to politics. Back to politics. Anyway, we're going on quite nicely, and now perhaps it's my fault. We've gone down this other road. Noel, what's your question? I'm sure It's not about politics.
Retail.
Yes.
You've warned us not to expect too much movement on big retailers at, you know...
This coming Sunday, yes.
Correct. Now, can you just talk us through the risk profile so people can understand what would be the difference between having going to a Coles, say, in terms of a risk profile, yep, and going to DJ's or Myer?
So there's a couple of points. You should only be going to Coles for the things you need when you need them, and you know, food, things that you actually need, not things that you might want, but things that you actually need. So it's very difficult to compare a hardware store or a clothing store with a supermarket. However, the time will come when we can have all of those settings open. They'll have COVID-safe plans, they'll have rules. The key point here is aggregate movement. It's not so much that a particular hardware store or a particular department store is a high-risk setting. It's about letting all the customers move freely to get there and to go to all the other places they might go on the way and on the way home. That's the basic issue here. It's not about saying that these settings are like an abattoir, for instance, which we know are high risk, not just here but right around the world. It's about aggregate movement, and movement means virus unless you've got the numbers very, very low, and you can be confident then that you haven't got it bubbling around, and that all of that movement, those many millions and millions of different, sort of touch points, if you like, all the different times and points in time where you come into contact with other people or services that other people come into contact with. There'll be a time for that, but that isn't now. But we'll have more to say about that on Sunday.
When you say virus means movement, technically me going to East Gippsland wouldn't transmit a virus unless, even if I had it, I did something wrong in terms of social distancing or I wasn't hand sanitising.
No, aggregate movement, so total movement. If you've got, the more people you have, if you've got, say, well, what have we got today? 157 active cases, right? So you've got 157 active cases. If you've got 1,500 active cases or 1,000 active cases or even 500 active cases, and you've got everybody moving around the community, then the science and logic tells you that there's greater chance, much greater chance, for the virus to be travelling with people. This thing hitches a ride, and the more places you go, the more places it goes. That's even if you're following the rules. That's why, you know, we won't ever know. But if you look at the Chadstone, Kilmore, Shepparton, Benalla case, you know, it is possible that even if that person had not gone to a cafe, which is against the rules, or not gone anywhere else other than just done the things he was permitted to do, the mere fact that he was moving around and conversing with people and meeting with people may well have been enough for them to become positive. So that's the point we're making. But there'll be a time when there can be greater movement because the numbers are lower, and the first steps towards that will be on Sunday. Martin?
Yes.
No more for me?
Premier.
Excellent.
Mr. Foley, just on testing, you mentioned at the start the 97% figure. Are all the laboratories reporting their results to DHS within 8 or 24 hours of them receiving the results, or is it an immediate thing?
So there's both public and private pathology labs engaged in this, and the performance is overwhelmingly meeting all the benchmarks. So we're very confident that the pathology system, particularly now that the numbers are a lot lower, is meeting all the benchmarks, both
What's the benchmark?
across both. Well, we want to make sure. So part of the, as I've explained a couple of times, the whole system of how you test, trace and contact and isolate is all linked in the same system. So the test then has to be delivered to the pathology area in the quickest possible way, in the most accurate possible way, and then linked up digitally to your contact tracing teams for the delivery of the information. Are you positive, are you negative? So to have a really effective pathology system in there, bringing together both the public sector, which acts as the leadership role here, together with the private sector, is really critical. And as we've driven the numbers down through the enormous sacrifices that Victorians have made, and as we've improved the whole contact tracing system, the testing opportunities, as well as the role that pathology plays in those systems, all parts of the chain have got more and more effective, and all are meeting their benchmarks.
Thank you.
Minister, are you able to tell us who patient 0 was for the Box Hill Hospital outbreak and how the virus got from the COVID ward to the non-COVID ward there?
I'm happy to follow that up and get the Chief Health Officer's perhaps daily report to address that issue. It's not something I've been briefed on as to who the index client in that particular outbreak is.
And just on healthcare workers, we had 55 healthcare worker cases in the 8 days to yesterday added to that total. Is there, obviously they weren't from those 8 days, is there a reclassification ongoing of, you know, people, cases from months ago who may now have been found to be healthcare workers?
The healthcare worker is a very broad definition. It's everything from those engaged in security, cleaning, clerks' roles, pathology, nurses, enrolled nurses, surgeons, personal care assistants, a whole range of people. And as cases are run down in terms of their links, they are then settled as to where they get allocated. As we saw in the first wave, most healthcare workers who picked up the infection at that time appear to have got that in a community setting. In the second wave, it flipped around, particularly as a result of the private residential aged care outbreaks bringing the virus into a public healthcare setting, and most public healthcare workers who have picked it up in the second wave would have got it from a healthcare setting. But I'm very pleased to see that that is now reduced to 10 active cases in healthcare workers, and we will not rest until we drive that figure down to 0 in partnership with our healthcare workers.
So just to clarify, are DHHS going back and looking at older cases and I guess clarifying whether or not those people can be classified as healthcare workers?
As I understand it, that is part of the normal finalisation of data and reporting, as we see in some of the numbers in the daily reclassification attempts as cases are closed off. That's a standard arrangement.
I'm not sure who best might answer this one about burn-offs at the country properties. Is there any clarity yet? Sorry, Premier. Is there any clarity on the timing of that?
That's a very good question. There'll be announcements about Fire Action Week and fire preparedness next week in a general sense, and I'll have more to say on Sunday about arrangements for those who quite genuinely want to get to their properties. I will just forecast though, there will be rules. It's not a reason to go and travel outside metropolitan Melbourne and have a kind of de facto few days off. That's not what it's about. It is about properly responding to the fire risk in your local community, in your second community where you've got a property. It'll be structured. It'll be properly enforced, and there will be penalties if people abuse that. We know it's important. We want it to happen. We think there's a way forward on that, and I'll talk more about it on Sunday. But it's not an invitation just to go to the country and forget that there are rules. All the rules travel with you, and you're there for a lawful purpose. Not every purpose, the lawful purpose, which is doing the clean-up that we know is very important. Final point on this is it is a challenging year for that, because we know that the Bureau is telling us big spring rain events. So there may need to be more than one of those cleanups, if you like. Are there any other issues? I'll just finish by saying, please, any symptoms, no matter how mild, do not wait till tomorrow, do not wait till Monday. Please go and get tested today. Thanks very much. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Cheers.